Unite LA, which has led LA in building business and education partnerships towards a goal of improving the academic achievement for all Los Angeles students since 1998. We have a number of other guest speakers joining us here today. We will have time for Q&A after they say a few words. Alicia Benson is the Vice President of Education and Workforce for the Greater Spokane Incorporated. She's also the Executive Director of Spokane STEM, and she focuses on efforts to increase educational attainment by mobilizing business and education partners. Alicia May is the Executive Director of Priority Spokane, which is a community think tank about the social and economic factors that influence health. And the role of Priority Spokane is to catalyze, convene, and celebrate activities that improve Spokane County's well-being and vitality. Mary Manor joins us as well. She has served as the coordinator for the Great Start Collaborative of Traverse Bay since 2010. So this is a unique collaboration with the Traverse City Chamber and the local school district, both of which are committed to investing in early childhood as part of a long-term plan for regional prosperity and improved quality of life. And finally, our content expert joining us is Susan Ralston, who's a senior advisor at the Healthy Weight Commitment Foundation, has a lot of great corporate support for their Healthy Weight Commitment. And interestingly, prior to joining the Healthy Weight Commitment Foundation, Susan was the special assistant to the president at the White House and was responsible for managing activities, including education and healthcare. So we'll look forward to hearing from Susan as well. So to kick it off, we're going to have David Rattray talk a little bit about why chambers would engage in the childhood health and wellness arena in relation to the cradle-to-career spectrum.
Thank you, Alicia, and thank you to all of you for joining us today. So just to frame this issue, you know, it is an issue that I think it's important to sort of get your mind around. Why would our members care, and how do we make that case, and then how do we help them and support them in ways that they see as valuable? And so I know many of you do this, but others maybe have thought about it and they're not sure. And so that's just a way to get us going and warmed up. We thought it might be helpful if we just walk you through a couple of examples of how we've put this into our agenda, how we make the case, and how it sits with other things too, because of course we all have a whole bunch of things that we manage. So we provided a set of documents that I think are we gonna pull those up on the screen, Jesse? So I'll go to the first document that's there it is. So that happens to be the what we would call our one-page policy agenda for our Educational Workforce Development Council. I'm sure most of you have councils or committees on your various major advocacy issues. So this happens to be the one that the LA Chamber does for Educational Workforce Development. And the reason I thought it might be helpful to some is you can see the larger agenda that is that whole cradle to career agenda, which is the first box is our early 0 to 5, support increased expansion of early care. And you see how we say early care, education, and children's health. And if you would have looked at this 3 or 4 years ago, it wouldn't have said children's health. So that was an example for us as we were sort of getting informed and realized that if we want all kids to start school ready to learn, they had to be healthy. And we had to learn how to get informed about that, become advocates for it, and to message it to our members and to then, on behalf of our members, to our policymakers. So then you see, as you dive into that a little bit, some wording. So it's at the very end of that first paragraph, the language we use that says, if you read the end of the paragraph, K-12 system orders seamless alignment to expand children's health programs such as childhood obesity prevention, access to quality dental care, and to ensure students are healthy and ready to learn. So we just thought it would be helpful to see how we try to message this, and that's worked for us. That when our members see that, they see, oh, that all makes sense. It all fits together. I get why we're on it. I like that we're on it. Thank you. So then, Jesse, go to the next one. So we wanted to also show you that, of course, a lot of times the issues of health and the issues of education sit in different silos within a chamber because they would be thought of normally or typically as a different policy area. So this happens to be the same cut sheet that we would do for our health council. And I wanted you just to see how as we started to do this, we realized we had to connect these ideas. We couldn't show them as siloed and disconnected. So again, if you looked at this sheet 3 or 4 years ago at the LA Chamber, you wouldn't have seen that bottom right-hand box. And so I wanted you to see how, as we now talk about, as we tried to learn about connecting the dots with our own policy and make it coherent, we added this idea of promoting children's health. So you can see the words there. I won't read it to you, but take a look at it, and you'd see us trying to talk about why this is integrated, what's good for the workforce, what's good for education, what's good for a healthy society or healthy workforce are all related to each other. So that was the point of showing you this cut sheet. Keep going, Jess. So then this next document I thought might be helpful is this happens to be the LA Chamber's advocacy agenda for a lobby trip we just took to Washington, D.C. The last couple months. And so, again, I just thought it might be helpful to some of you to see how we frame it. And so a couple more pages, Jesse, and I'm going to take you to, I think, page 4. So in this page you see, that's it, thank you. You'll see our panel on healthcare. So again, that's a typical thing that we've done in the past, probably a lot of you do, that kind of starts talking about what a chamber typically would advocate for or could advocate for around healthcare issues. And in that you'd see a little bit of discussion in the second box around health hospital networks and children's hospitals and some of the things that we accentuate even more deeply that relate to children. So then page, 2 more pages, Jesse. So then here you would see us again back to this education and workforce development argument that we're making. And in that you'd see the very first one, it says under early education, strengthen and expand early education in children's health programs. So again, you're seeing us sort of connect the idea that being ready to learn means being healthy and not being obese or and have a lack of access to dental care and health care. And then it flows through everything. We don't keep bringing it up, but we make the case when we talk about it. So then go to the next about 3 more pages, and you'll see a brief that we did. There it is. So then when we, like most of you, when we do an advocacy trip, in addition to the high-level document that we just showed you, we would do a policy brief that goes in greater detail for our participants, our member companies and member participants. And so this is a detailed brief where we're going deeper around the reason why chambers should care and then how we make the arguments about why this is a big deal. So we're talking about the pipeline, strengthen the workforce pipeline, kids ready to learn and staying healthy and learning well over a whole 0 to 5, but then K to 16. And then we also are talking here about the workforce and the importance of strengthening the early childhood workforce. Then flip 1 more page. So then you see us going deeper around children's health. So this just shows you kind of how we're messaging that. Okay, 1 more. So the next example we thought we'd give you real quick, 1 more, is our lobby piece for our state lobby trip. So this is our trip to Sacramento, our state capital, that we just took a few weeks ago. So this is the front page, so keep going. You see a little messaging in there about cradle to career, by the way. So keep going. 1 more. So again, you see implementation of healthcare reform. So we're talking about healthcare in general. And there's a little messaging in there that talks about children's health. Okay, so then go 1 more. So then we're back to the whole case around education. And when we talk about education, you'd see, if you look in that, so cradle to career messaging in the opening paragraph. And then as you go down into it, the second one you say, the second major area investment and expansion, you see language that says legislation that expands quality early childhood education for children birth to 5 and addresses children's wellness, including childhood obesity prevention. So again, just wanted you to see how we try to message this and how it works. Okay, so the next document. So some of you have probably seen this, but this is another example we thought might be helpful. One more page. So this is a piece that a lot of us worked with the U.S. Chamber on several years ago to sort of build the case for early childhood education. So go to the next page. And I think one more. This just FYI, before we go off that, go back 1 second. So this was a case where our former chair of the LA Chamber's Education Committee, Maëlia Messine, she was a huge advocate for early education, and then agreed to be a spokesperson on this flyer. So that just happens to be our chair. We're sort of aligning these ideas. So then go to the next page. Well, actually, go back one more time. Sorry to do that. So the bottom right-hand bullet, you see how there, in this document, the idea was connected. The bottom right-hand bullet is, yet too often we do not give our young children early education, health, including dental health, and social support they need. Okay, so and you see the header there is a high-performing workforce. So you see how the connection they're making between a future workforce and getting off to a good start. So next page. And then in this slide, again, you would see if you go into some of these bullets, so at on the bottom right-hand corner, this, you see the second to last bullet about increasing availability to child care programs at full workday, evidence-based. No, I didn't catch actually the right one there. So in there, there's several messages around children's health. Oh yeah, it's the top right-hand bullet, integrating delivery of health and education services birth to 5. So anyway, just another example of how the messaging works. So enough of that. We just thought it would be helpful, and in fact, it would be wonderful if some of you, I'm sure many of you have done stuff like this too, if you would send it to us so we can build a repository and teach each other how we're messaging, how we're analyzing, how we're positioning, how we're advocating, because these aren't done on the normal here, and so we need to be teaching each other kind of like how do you put these policy matters together, how do you put them together in a local campaign. So that was my way of trying to frame this and get us thinking about it, and just feed a few examples. And so what I'll do now is transition to our first speaker, and they'll go deeper on some other examples that you'll see from across the country. So I think I start with Alicia.
Yeah, Alicia and Alyssa. We have Alicia, and Alyssa all on this call today.
So Alicia Benson, it's yours.
Perfect. Thank you, David. Appreciate it. Well, good morning, everyone. Our pleasure to be on the phone and take a few minutes and share a little bit about our story and journey here in Spokane, Washington. A couple of contextual pieces for folks on the phone in case you aren't familiar with Spokane. We are not a suburb of Seattle, Washington. We're about 5 hours to the east, about 30 minutes from the panhandle of Idaho, so Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, home to the Gonzaga Bulldogs. That may be our most notable national recognition. And for all of us in the chamber world, Rich Hadley was our CEO and president for the past 21 years. Just retired 2 weeks ago after 39 years in the business, and we are excited to welcome Steve Stevens from Northern Kentucky as our new CEO starting in July, and excited as well as we talk about this conversation because the state of Kentucky has certainly been, a leader in the work around education workforce and some of the healthcare pieces. So excited to have Steve join us here in Spokane. So what Alicia May is with me, and Alicia is the executive director of a partner organization here in Spokane called Priority Spokane. And so she and I are going to kind of walk you through a quick kind of a journey of how our two organizations have evolved together and the work and role that an organization like Greater Spokane Incorporated, who's the regional chamber and economic development organization, how we started to get involved in this space of health and in the correlation to education and income and truly growth and economic development for our region. So next slide, please. So I'd say we really will start our journey back about 15 years ago or so, and truly under the leadership of our past CEO, he took it upon himself to pull together our higher ed community. We have 2 private four-year institutions, 2 public universities, and a great community college system, and pulled them together to really start to think about what role does business and education play together. How do they, with some of our business community, what might be some of those priorities and focuses for this community? One of the other key pieces in this conversation is the fact that Spokane is the largest healthcare community between Seattle and Minneapolis, or down to Salt Lake City. So we serve a really large geographic area, and there's a lot of healthcare needs, both here in the Spokane region, but throughout our rural counties and communities to the north and south of us, over into northern Idaho and western Montana, and up into the Canadian provinces to the north of us. So really serving a large geographic need for how we deliver healthcare, and that tied to, most importantly, our children. And so that started a whole process as they moved through really into the early 2000s, where they helped launch this kind of focus around the Spokane Alliance for Medical Research. And in the same process, taking the same leadership of our higher ed community with business, also engaged some great, with our superintendents of our K-12 school systems and our private institutions, to really start to follow that same model and think about how the whole pipeline works, how healthcare is engaged, is a piece of all of that, and really how each of those different pieces are impacting our kids and the overall health of our community. And then in 2007, our organization actually merged with the Economic Development Council to create what is now known as Greater Spokane Incorporated, which really just allowed us to leverage an amazing amount of resource and asset and business partners to further the work that's happening here in the region. And at the same time, we were also excited and kind of at the effort of our higher ed community with business to be able to establish the first year of WWAMI medical education in our region, which is WWAMI, for those that aren't familiar, is Washington, Wyoming, Alaska, Montana, and Idaho, but a consortium model from the University of Washington about how we're training physicians and healthcare providers across that 5-state region, and we were able to establish that first year here in the region. Also around the same time, as an organization, we were furthering our role in how we partner with the education community, and how business can play a role in helping to prepare our teachers and their impacts in the classroom with launching programs like our Teaching the Teachers program that brings students or teachers into the places of business to learn about the function. And our healthcare community has been a really critical piece of that. We have 2 large hospital systems and a lot of research-related healthcare organizations and laboratories to spin off of that. So what was that role, and how was that training working, and also what were the impacts of health here in our region that was starting to happen through that conversation?
This is Alicia May with Priority Spokane. I'm going to take over for a couple of slides here. In 2005-2006, Eastern Washington University, which is one of our public universities that Alicia mentioned, their Economic and Policy Development Unit did a Community Indicators Initiative, which was a report card, so to speak, about, could you back up this, or move forward with the slide, please? Thank you. Did a report card about Spokane and how we were doing in various aspects. Some of the community leaders decided they didn't want that information just to sit dusty on a shelf, and so they formed a new organization called Priority Spokane. And you can see there the logos of the various Priority Spokane members, including Greater Spokane Incorporated. Go to the next slide. Priority Spokane took the data from the Community Indicators Initiative and took the community, or many leaders in the community, through a series of task force that ended up narrowing down what they believed the priorities were for our community. And as you can see from the graph, the final vote ended up with working on educational attainment as far and away the chief priority at the time in 2009. I will mention at this time that Spokane Public Schools, which is one of the 14 school districts in our state, the largest by far of the school districts. Their graduation rate was hovering about 59% at that time. So it was clear that there was a lot of work to be done. And as you can see, many of the other areas such as economic development, early learning, healthcare, saw education as being a key to improving their own priorities and their initiatives. Go on to the next slide, please. Spokane Public Schools, working with some of the partners of Priority Spokane, facilitated an important research project with Mary Beth Celio, which showed where in elementary school, middle school, and high school, where the factors lay that would influence a child to drop out of high school. One of the most important things learned through this study is that there's 14% of the students where you could not determine why they would drop out. Life just happened. But a full 46% of the factors could be identified before the student ever entered 9th grade. With that information, a lot of initiatives, including some Priority Spokane initiatives, have gone into addressing those risk factors. I'm handing it back to Alicia now. Would you please go to the next slide?
So that was lots of momentum for the community, and at the same time there was this increase, much like across the country, this increased focus around STEM, and certainly the state of Washington has a huge need for it. Interesting in that conversation is these pieces were all starting to come together was also this part about being the largest health sciences area, and so how does the health sciences work into and support STEM? What are those workforce needs? And again, we kept coming back to this lingering piece of what's happening in those earliest years, and so we were getting a lot of great momentum through both the work of Priority Spokane, the focus of STEM, and at the same time they decided to, as we applied to be a network focused on STEM, to further all of this kind of education and workforce priority work going on, that the STEM network would be integrated and laid within Greater Spokane Incorporated. So now we had the original kind of work and focus of the Chamber in Education and Workforce with supporting Priority Spokane, which we'll hop to, as well as the kind of integration of STEM into the organization as well. And so now you have this great pod of activity that was generating a lot of energy in the region. Next slide, please.
So in 2012, I was hired as first executive director, which showed a real emphasis on how the work of Priority Spokane was making a difference, and they wanted to even further that. And GSI is the host for Priority Spokane. We are a program partner with them, and it certainly is making a difference both in the mission of GSI and the work of Priority Spokane.
Let's hop to the next slide.
One of the things that happened at this time is that the Spokane Regional Health District produced this great Odds Against Tomorrow report that really linked lack of education with poor health, and that has been a backbone of a lot of the work that we have done, including a grant that Priority Spokane wrote in partnership with others that you can see on the screen that has gone to affect an excellent pilot project happening with the 6 Spokane middle schools, restorative practice to address middle school truancy, and that Odds Against Tomorrow report enabled us to draw the links to how truancy and lack of education was really going to have long-term impacts on the health of these students and their families and our community. So on to the next slide, please.
So as all of this was happening, we also, Washington State University, just growing off of the WWAMI medical education work that was going on, actually made this a health sciences campus up here instead of just being a branch. And in that same point, Priority Spokane led an effort with the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation on behalf of our region and our county to look at this collaborative work between graduation rates, improving community health, and a lot of the kind of activity that's going on. And as we've moved through this process, we're one of the 12 finalists. We'll find out next month whether or not we're one of the 6 communities or across the country that's really looking at this cross-section of how education and health impact the community based on all of the different collaborative work that's going on. And the fun part of that is that of the 12 finalists, and really of, I think, all of the applications, of the 250 applications, we're the only one community that approached it looking at how the impact of education has a significant impact on community health outcomes. And that's allowed us to be able to take that same journey with the CDC's National Leadership Academy for the Public Health, working with the same set of 4 partners. Again, GSI being part of that, looking at how 4 organizations from, in a sense, some very different positions in the community come together to lead in this space of looking at how education and health impact each other, which has just continued to create a lot of energy. You can go to the next slide. Our Board of Trustees set an education attainment vision for our region here this last year, and at the same point, we now have 4 years of medical education in a full medical school online in our community that is having huge implications for the research and support activity for education and health. And also then, as we've set this strategic discussion through our partnership with our United Way, we are waiting to find out if we're going to be one of the handful of communities that Illumina Foundation funds in this next go-around around the Cradle to Career effort, and specifically looking at some of the opportunity gaps and health pieces related to education attainment. So it's just been a very exciting journey. And so how we start to sum it up, you can go to the next slide, is that we wanted to share just a couple of tidbits. That's kind of our history in the last 15 years, quickly, of this long, important journey of this intersection of education and health, and then ultimately the impact on community and economic development and workforce. A couple of our kind of learnings is, I think, it's all about relationships and trust. As you know, this has been a 15-year plus effort, and so it takes time, yet at the same point, some of these small opportunities where we came together have really been the catalyzing or chain reaction. We really look at when Priority Spokane was formed, bringing these kind of unique partners together, that became a catalyzing, the research really catalyzed the chain reaction of momentum around the community, business, education, community-based organizations, really looking at how this intersection happens. And so the last part I would add is my leadership learning to that is this work, it's important to invite those unique stakeholders or non-traditional partners that you may or may not be working with to the table, but in a true validated role, that they're at the table because they have value and experience to add to the conversation, not just to be a placeholder. All too often you go to committee meetings where you've been the person asked to be there because you represent the business community in my case, versus I'm there because of my ability to really influence the conversation or the work and experience that we bring. And it's a really important piece of how we've had this success and created this real trust and balance in the work.
So go to the last slide, and I'll share my leadership learnings while that's up. And the thing that I would say I've learned through this is that in every activity that you do, whether it's education or economic development, even if it doesn't appear to be health related, it's important to ask the question, is what I'm doing going to improve the health of the individuals involved, the individuals who are impacted, and the health of our community? That's everything that we do impacts health, and health impacts everything in turn, and I don't think we think about that, operate on that, or measure the health impacts as much as we could and should. So that's our presentation, and thank you for allowing us the opportunity to be here.
Wow, so impressive. Thank you so much, both of you, for sharing that incredible work. And I noticed, are those your 2 daughters? Is that what we're seeing?
Alicia's daughter in the top, and then my daughter and son with me at the bottom.
And your daughter and your son, and I note all your children look fit. Good for you.
Got to live the community of health piece too, right?
Okay, so we're a little behind, so I'll turn it over to Mary.
Well,
Hi, everybody. This is Mary Manor, and I'm in Traverse City, Michigan. I work at the Traverse City Area Chamber of Commerce, and I just wanted to thank David for some of that great introductory material that he showed. You're going to see some of the same information in my presentation. So if I could have the next slide, please. This is a panorama of where we live. If you zoomed in, you could see my office. But this slide shows the 5-county footprint that we serve here in rural northwestern Traverse City and the Grand Traverse Bay. Next slide, please. One of the committees that the Chamber manages is the Healthcare Committee, and this committee was formed at the request of members, and the leadership really comes from the members in this committee. They are concerned mostly with making sure that our community has the resources that we need to support people who might be underserved, and also to assist the Chamber in developing the right policies and in promoting and advocating for policies that make sense for our communities. Next slide, please. The membership, it really cuts across our members in the community, and I have been to several of these meetings. It's very well attended, and there's a lot of information that comes to this committee through the participation of these members. One of the criteria for being a member of this committee is that you have a passion for the purpose of the group, which is improving the health of our community. Next slide, please. Two of the projects that this particular group has worked on have been in partnership. One, Shape Michigan with Munson Healthcare. Munson is the largest hospital for about 120 miles. They cover almost all of northern Michigan in terms of providing specialty care services. And also Priority Health, which is a health insurance company. Shape Michigan is really designed to encourage folks to adopt healthy lifestyles. And our own president and CEO, Doug Luciani, was one of the first people to publicly agree that he would attain and maintain a healthy BMI, which he has done. Another project that this group has worked on is the Farm to School project. We're a very agricultural area, and one of the nonprofit organizations in the region, the Michigan Land Use Institute, has been promoting purchasing local produce, purchasing and using local meat and dairy products. We have a lot of cheeses. We make a lot of wine. We're making a lot of beer from locally grown hops. So this is a large part of our economy. And the Traverse City Area Public Schools is the largest school district in the region. They have about 10,000 students and have been participating in a project where they're increasing what they source locally and also increasing the amount of fruits and vegetables that are provided to students in their lunches and breakfasts through a 10 cents a meal program, which is funded publicly and privately through some coordination of our partners. The other thing that's great that happens around this particular project is that we have some AmeriCorps Vista Food Corps volunteers in the region, and they've been helping the schools develop school gardens and helping teachers develop curriculum-based activities for kids so that they're learning more about how to eat healthy. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, we're a big agricultural area, and the Fair Food Network did this slide. It shows that if every organization in Michigan would just source 20% local food, what the economic impact would be on Michigan's agricultural economy. So the Chamber here has adopted a 20% goal of sourcing locally, and we're encouraging our members and partners to do the same thing. Next slide, please. So this is where I come in. In 2008, The Traverse Bay Area Intermediate School District, which is an educational services agency that covers 5 counties and serves about 32 different public and private school systems located within our region. They partnered with the Traverse City Area Chamber of Commerce to write a grant to the state of Michigan to start a Great Start Collaborative here in the Traverse Bay region. And next slide, please. Thank you. Yep. And they were successful in receiving that that grant. Now, every county at the time in Michigan was starting a Great Start Collaborative in order to address early childhood systems building in the state. But the thing that's unique about us is that, first of all, we're 5 counties. Most of the other collaboratives were only 1 or 2 counties, but TVA ISD is the largest intermediate school district in the state. And also, we were the only one that had a full partnership between a Chamber of Commerce and an ISD. And the relationship is that I am actually a full-fledged chamber employee. I staff the collaborative, and I provide services to chamber members as well as leading the work in our community and our region around early childhood. So as you can see, Michigan's vision for early childhood has 4 components through the Office of Great Start, which is embedded within the Michigan Department of Education. And the number 1 dashboard item, the number 1 thing that everyone feels is the most important, is that children are born healthy. So in Michigan, when we talk about P12 or P16, we really mean prenatal, not preschool. Next slide, please. For the Great Start Collaboratives, there are 5 system components that we all are working on in our local communities and across our, in my case, across our region. And once again, one of the number 1 things that we work on is that families adopt healthy lifestyles and receive the medical care that they need. Another important component of that is children's social emotional development. In our region, we really, when we talk about children's health, we're really merging both physical and social emotional. Next slide, please. In David's slides, you saw an investment curve, and I'm actually going to show you that next. But that comes from the work that James Heckman has done, and this is the Heckman Equation. You can actually, that's the name of his website if you want to see more. But this is what really began to motivate our chamber to become involved in early childhood. When we look at the importance of investing in early childhood, when we look at all of the brain development that happens and all of the important components that need to be in place and doing the right things at the right time for young children, we realized that this is the place that we wanted to have a major impact on the economic prosperity of our region. So invest, develop, sustain, and gain. Not only gain future skilled workforce, but gain in productivity of our current parents, the workforce that is currently doing all of those things that people have to do when they're working and raising children as well. Next slide, please. So this is that curve that I mentioned, and the thing that motivated us here is looking at the rate of return on our investments. And not only is it clear that investing early makes a difference, but investments in young children are a lot less expensive and produce far greater results based on lots of research that's available, starting with the Perry preschool study in the late 60s and right on up until today. Next slide, please. The problem is that as a nation and as communities, we wait to invest. So while the brain growth, the majority of the brain growth and other very important social and emotional development is occurring during the first the first 3 years and up until a child is about ready to enter school, we're hardly investing anything. And we're waiting until a child is almost ready to graduate from school when brain growth has really declined. The rate of growth has declined. That's when we really start throwing the bucks. And we wondered, isn't there a better way to do it? Next slide, please. So we began looking at the data, and we found many data sources. These are data sources that are readily available to anyone who wants to consider doing work in early childhood as an economic development process. One of the things that we have worked very hard on is to gather the parent voice. Those are the items that occur near the bottom of the list, but that's not because they are not highly prioritized. Next slide, please. These are some of the members of the Great Start Collaborative of Traverse Bay, and I did not bother to try to list all of our business members, but I do want to acknowledge the fact that we have many business members who are also serving on work groups and advising the collaborative in a number of ways. The important thing for us has been to establish relationships, individual relationships with our partners, and always work toward us helping them achieve their goals as well as achieving the greater goals of early childhood in our region. Next slide, please. So I'm going to run through a couple of examples about why early childhood is so important to children's health. And the first one is talks about asthma. Early childhood advocates advocate for home visiting. And this is an example of how home visiting is having an economic impact on communities as well as a profound health impact on communities. If you look at the baseline, which is the gray sections, you can see that kids kids with asthma, a lot of them are missing school, and a lot of parents are missing work because of it. But once home visiting programs started and provided the right kind of assistance to families, number of missed school days declined significantly, and number of missed work days declined significantly. If we talk about how early childhood impacts adult health outcomes, then a recent article that was published in Science magazine by James Heckman and a number of his colleagues looks at the improvement in health outcomes for adults based on having good nutrition and health care during early childhood. This is from the Abecedarian study that was conducted in North Carolina, and I underlined an absolutely unbelievable finding, which is that males in the treatment group, that is the children who received these intensive early childhood services in terms of high-quality preschool and parent education, good medical care, good nutrition, had none of them exhibit the pre-metabolic syndrome, while in the control group, 25%. This is almost unheard of that you would see such a profound difference. Next slide, please. What we're doing locally is to expand the farm to school program into a farm to preschool program. This is a national endeavor that's going on. Actually, Occidental College in Glendale, California is one of the leaders in this movement. The connections here are to provide activities that connect to curriculum in preschool, to increase children's nutrition, and outreach to families, because we know that sometimes the best way to teach adults is by teaching through their children. Next slide, please. Another major project of our collaborative was initiated and is in part funded by the Chamber of Commerce, and it is developing a model for rural communities to build a robust early childhood system that can address many of the needs that families have in raising their young children. Our vision is to make this region the best place in the United States to grow up as a child. The way that we want to do it is by developing a no wrong door network, a set of neighborhood centers so that parents have access in their local communities to the programs and services and activities that they need, and to develop a regional hub that can begin to manage the data and support the other aspects of the network in the neighborhood centers. Next slide, please.
Mary, this is fantastic, by the way. Are you pretty close, though? We didn't probably leave enough time.
I am, and I'm very close. So
okay.
We're in the design phase. Next slide. Recommendations in terms of how to impact early childhood and children's health in your communities. I have a list. Make connections with what other people are doing would be my top recommendation. Next slide, please. A sample action plan, and I think that David addressed this very well. Develop an early childhood communications plan and get it out in front of your community. And finally, the last slide. These are some of the selected resources that I highly recommend that you investigate if you're looking for data and information on how to develop your own communication plan. And of course, you can always get in touch with me. So thank you.
Thank you, Mary. That's a fantastic piece of work that you and Traverse City Chamber are doing. So I'll turn it over to Susan now.
Hi, everybody. This is Susan Ralston, and I am a senior advisor with the Healthy Weight Commitment Foundation. I really appreciate the opportunity today to tell you about our programs and our partnership that we have with ACCE. I will, in the interest of time, go through my slides quickly, but I'm happy to touch base with anybody if you have the need for more information about our foundation and programs. Next slide. Our signature program is called Together Counts, and it was designed to encourage families to eat meals together, recognizing that the importance of the home element and that when families eat together, they tend to be healthier. We really want to energize and engage communities to be physically active together, and we have free resources for parents, teachers, and educators to focus on healthy, active lifestyles at home, school, work, and anywhere in between. We really want to work together and collectively with all the organizations to come up with solutions to the obesity problem in the United States. Next slide. We are a fairly young organization. We were started in 2009, but we have had a big impact since we started, and you can see by some of these numbers here. We are reaching consumers through 260-plus organizations that make up Healthy Weight Commitment Foundation. We have energy balance curriculum that's reaching 50% of the schools in the country. Our members really are interested in our metrics, so we're tracking website visits. We're really trying to actively grow our social media network, and we are actively working with our partners and developing more partners, organizations like the Girl Scouts of the USA, Boy Scouts, and the National PTA. And then we also have very strong incentive programs like a sweepstakes that we are having great impact on schools throughout the country and growing every year. Next slide. Our main website is togethercounts.com, and I encourage you all to stop by and check out those resources there. This is a screenshot of our website, and it's where all of our programs live. As I mentioned, it's designed for families, teachers, and health professionals. And I really want to stress that all the resources that you find on this website are absolutely free. We have curriculum for pre-K and elementary K through 5, and that's all free. And all of our resources are open source, which means that organizations like yourself can use our content, curriculum, tips, tools, widgets on their own websites. You can certainly link to us, but you can also take and download our materials, or I'm happy to give them to you electronically so that our content and resources live on your own websites. You can brand them as your own without any need to attribute them to Healthy Weight Commitment Foundation. Our members funded us to develop these resources, and our goal is to get these resources out to you for free. So we really appreciate organizations like ACCE and other chambers to consider using our free content. Next slide. All of our resources are available in Spanish. So our K through 5, our pre-K curriculum, as well as our enrichment zone resources are all in Spanish. You can go to the Spanish website from the Maine Together Counts page. Next slide. From the main page, there is an at-home section of the website, which is where we focus on reaching families and providing them with free content through blogs, tips, articles, as well as how parents get involved through our incentive programs. Next slide. We have an after-school or out-of-the-classroom version of the curriculum called the Enrichment Zone. And again, both of the Enrichment Zone is for pre-K and K through 5 versions of that. And we really encourage our partners and anyone to take this free content and use it as their own. It's great for our partner organizations, but again, if this is something that you want to take and put on your own websites, we welcome and encourage you to do that. It is completely free. Next slide. The at-school section of the website is where our curriculum lives. It's free, it's flexible, it's modular, and it's designed to have anyone teach these concepts of energy balance without being an expert in nutrition or physical activity. And energy balance is really the core of our curriculum, the concept of energy in and energy out, physical activity as well as nutrition. The curriculum is aligned to national standards and was developed by Discovery Education's curriculum experts. Next slide. We do have a research component of the program, and it's called Energy Balance for Kids. People really want to know are there metrics to show that energy balance work? Do the concepts of energy balance really work in school in terms of preventing obesity and making kids healthier? And this is a study that we have ongoing with UC Berkeley, the Academy of Nutrition Dietetics, and PlayWorks. And we're reviewing the metrics and the impact of the energy balance approach, and that report is going to be coming out later this year. Next slide. I mentioned that our pre-K version, we have a pre-K version of the energy balance curriculum, and one of the key decisions that we made was to align the curriculum to the standards of the National Association for Education of Young Children, NAEYC. It's also aligned to WIC standards, SNAP-Ed, and Head Start standards. And we did that so providers of those programs could also use the education materials in their own programs, and again, do so for free. So if any of your organizations provide those training programs under those programs, please, I encourage you to take a look at our resources because they are free and aligned to those standards. We're really trying to build awareness through those program providers, so please help us get the word out. Next slide. As I mentioned, we have 260 members of the Healthy Weight Commitment Foundation. We were started by 16 core food and beverage manufacturers, some of the largest organizations of food and beverage in the world, companies like Coca-Cola, PepsiCo, Conagra, General Mills, Kellogg's, Hershey, Mars, Nestle. But we also work with many nonprofit organizations, trade associations, community and grassroots programs, small and large. And all of these organizations and corporations are aligned with us in some way in our mission to promote healthy, active lifestyles. It's free to be a member, and we are trying to build relationships with organizations that are already doing great things out there in health and wellness, nutrition, education, physical activity, and obesity prevention. We have organizations on both sides of the energy balance equation, like Roadrunners Clubs of America or the National Wildlife Federation, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics that I mentioned earlier, and organizations like Common Threads that are providing cooking classes in schools into at-risk communities around the country. So in terms of organizations like you who might be interested in working with us to be a member, to be a partner, to build networks, to disseminate on our content and resources, again, it's all free, I encourage you to reach out to me and touch base about how to be a partner. Quickly here on this list are ways that we engage with our partners. Some of it's as simple as sharing content or linking strategies between our two organizations. And we also have a very active social media team that works on Facebook, that works on Twitter, and even Pinterest. So we're really about actively working with members collaboratively, sharing ideas, coming up with interesting ways to promote each other's programs, because we're not about reinventing the wheel. We really want to work with organizations that are already doing great things out there. Next slide. And one more. We have some quick samples here of our partners sharing our content and news and social media. It's really been a strong program for us, and it's a real easy way to engage with Healthy Weight Commitment Foundation and engage with our members. Next slide. Here's another quick snapshot of what we're doing with our partners. We promote partner programs and events, so we have a calendar which we can share upcoming events of what our partners are doing. We like to spotlight partners or what our partners are doing in terms of their great content, their blogs, their resources that may already be available, and we really work to engage each other in very creative ways. Next slide. One more screenshot of corporate engagement. We like to track what our members are doing, and we so much appreciate the broad reach that our members help us achieve. Next slide. Gives you a little sample of who our members are. We have organizations like Harris Teeter, some of the retailers that we work with, sharing our content. Next slide. Also organizations like Hy-Vee and Red Bears. Next slide. And one more. I mentioned earlier the impact that we have in schools and some of our incentive programs. And some of the next few slides just highlight some of the winners of the contests and sweepstakes that we have. In 2012, we had a winning school from Myrtle Beach. Then here is DuPont Elementary. They are the Healthy Playground Makeover Sweepstakes winner. I love to go to these schools and deliver the big check. Next slide. We really believe that incentives drive change. So while our sweepstakes program is really popular, we love this program, which really incentivizes schools to make changes within their community to promote energy balance, whether that's getting more fresh fruits and vegetables into their nutrition and cafeterias, or developing more physical activity programs. Next slide. And a few more wonderful winning schools here around the country. Again, it's been really fun to travel and visit these schools, hear their stories, hear about their challenges. Next slide. It's really surprising and amazing to hear some of the stories about schools that don't have playgrounds, that don't have safe places to play, that don't have access to fresh fruits and vegetables. So it's really wonderful to visit the schools in the communities and make an impact. Next slide. So to recap, the Healthy Weight Commitment Foundation and the Together Counts program, we are a dynamic and diverse coalition of so many different organizations. We really appreciate working with any and all core organizations to encourage you to use our free resources to help us build awareness and promote healthy, active lifestyles. And if you're interested in partnering with our organizations, ACCE can put you in touch with me. But on the next slide, you can have my contact information. Please feel free to reach out to me. But know that you do not need to be a partner to use our free content and curriculum. We hope you'll get engaged with us. And thank you.
Thank you so much for all that wonderful content, and thank you to all of our speakers. We really appreciate you joining us. It was such great content that we have run out of time, so all of those questions that our participants have submitted through the webinar online, our EAD team will follow up with via email, and we'll be happy to connect you with the speakers for specific questions. Jesse, a couple of last words on some EAD resources.
Sure. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. And we will be sending an email also with the wonderful presentation slides from our panelists. And we'll also make them available on the new Chamberpedia site for workplace wellness and early childhood obesity prevention. There's a lot of great resources and examples from both chambers and partners like Healthy Weight Commitment Foundation that you can use to start your own program in your communities and engage further. So we're really excited about that resource. And then just also a reminder that our convention registration is open for the ACC's annual convention in Cincinnati, August 12th through 15th, and it's the 100th anniversary centennial convention, so it'll be a great time and a lot of really important EAD-related content and networking opportunities that we're planning for that, so we hope to see you there. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.